Hey, fourth grade, and welcome back to online lesson number 6. Today we're going to start with a book. This is a book I found that was given to me, and I found when I was cleaning my room out, getting ready to teach online. This is a book called Home on the Range. Yep, just like the song. And the subtitle is John A. Lomax and His Cowboy Songs. And this is about the man who collected a lot of our folk songs, and he's the reason we still have them to this day. Okay, so we're just going to read to get started today. In this book, there are a whole bunch of little cowboy songs, like this one here, Cowboy Grace. Eat your meat and save the skin. Turn up your plate and let's begin. The Texas Cowboy. Oh, I am a Texas cowboy far away from home. If ever I get back to Texas, I never more will roam. John Avery Lomax grew up singing. Why, he probably knew more folk songs, tunes, and ballads than there were cattle in the great state of Texas. Whenever his father hollered, "Plantin' time!" young John would run barefoot behind the plow, dropping the bright kernels of corn into the sweet, dark earth. "Keep up now," urged his father, and so John sang in time to his work. Whistle and hoe, sing as you go, shorten the rows by the songs you know. John knew songs to make other chores easier too. When his mother called, "Time to churn the butter," John got out the old wooden churn and pulled the dasher up and down until his arms felt ready to fall off. But he got the job done singing, come butter, come butter quick, for old Aunt Kate's a-wavin' at the gate, for a piece of Johnny cake, come butter, come." Before long, John was singing the sun awake in the morning and crowing the moon to sleep at night. Uh, and sometimes with a good friend, Nat, John sang just for fun. "Oh, rabbit skipped and rabbit hopped. Oh, rabbit, eat my turnip top. Oh, rabbit, rabbity hash." The Lomax family farm was nestled near a river on the old Crimsholm Trail. In those days, cowboys still drove cattle along the trail, and they often stopped to rest near John's house. Just as John sang in time to his chores, the cowboys made up songs to pass the long hours in the saddle and cold, lonely nights. Sometimes, when John lay in his small attic bed, he could hear the mournful voice of a cowboy in the distance. "Woo-wee, woo-wee, oh, slow down, little doggies, quit your drovin' around. You wandered and trampled all on the ground. Oh, graze along, doggies, and feed kinda slow, and don't forever be on the go. Oh, move slow, doggies, move slow." The songs went straight to John's heart, and he made up his mind to write down each and every cowboy song he heard. John didn't have much to write with, so he used whatever came to hand. The stub of a pencil, scrap of paper, cardboard torn from a box. He kept his roll of songs safe in the bottom of his trunk, tied up with a string. Poor lonesome cowboy. I'm a poor lonesome cowboy, and a long way from home. Sometimes, one of the hardest things in life is to find the right path. John wasn't sure where his road would lead, but he loved learning and books just as fiercely as he loved music. So when he grew up, John left home and worked hard to earn money. He was able to enter the University of Texas. One day, John got the courage to show his precious collection of cowboy songs to his teacher. He hoped the professor would find them as fascinating as he did. But the snooty professor just turned up his nose. There's nothing to value in these songs of plain, ordinary folk, he sneered. John felt his face go red. He rushed away, ashamed and embarrassed. That night he made a fire and burned every last scrap of song. The Texas song. I'm going to leave old Texas now, for they've got no use for the longhorn cow. John never forgot his professor's cruel words, but he went on to finish college and became a teacher. Several years later, John got a chance to go back to school at Harvard University in Massachusetts. There he met a teacher who changed his life. Professor Barrett Wendell was tired of teaching from the same old books, so asked John if there were and other students to do something fun and new, to write a long paper about their own part of the country and the piece they call home, and of course, to share it in class. Home? To John, home would always be Texas, and home would always be about singing. Even if the other students laughed, John knew he had to write his paper about cowboy songs. John wanted his project to be great. Even though he knew lots of songs, he figured there must be a lot more he didn't know. So he wrote to newspapers all over the West, asking for help from readers. John asked folks to send him old ballads they'd heard from grandparents. He asked for songs about the deeds of desperados, the stories of stage drivers, and of course, cowboy songs. Not long after, John went to his mailbox one day, and his mouth dropped open in surprise. The box was bulging with letters filled with stories and songs. People from all over had showered him with the old songs they loved, cowboy songs and sea shanties, lumberjack songs and lullabies, short songs and long songs, funny songs and sad songs. John was ready. He set to work to write the best paper he could. When it came John's turn to present his work to the class, he hoped his teachers and friends wouldn't laugh. John cleared his throat nervously. He told his classmates about his farm by the old Crimson Trail and how he'd grown up hearing cowboys sing to their cattle in the starry darkness of deep Texas night. John said he didn't know who wrote most of the songs he had collected. They seemed to have sprung up as quickly and mysteriously as the grass on the plain. The room grew still when John began to sing, and his friends listened. They suddenly forgot where they were. Why, it was almost as if they had become cowboys themselves, telling tales around flickering campfires after one more weary day on the trail. "Lay still, little doggies, lay still," John said, just like a cowboy putting his cattle to sleep. Then he gave a cowboy's long, night-hurting yodel. At first, there was a startled silence. Then, to John's delight, the whole class burst into cheers. After that, John became determined to gather all the old cowboy songs he could find into a book. He wanted to record cowboys singing the songs, too, so he could give the recordings to a library to keep for all time. John set out with a notebook and a clumsy, heavy recording machine. It wouldn't be easy. No one else had ever collected American songs this way before. Like John's first professor, most people thought it was a crazy idea. And what would the cowboys think? John wasn't sure folks would be willing to share in the Epiphone, his big, old-fashioned recording horn. One of John's first stops was the White Elephant Saloon in Fort Worth, Texas. John met cowboys there. All right. But just as he feared, they took one look at his large recording horn and clambered right up. "I've been singing them songs ever since I was a kid. Everybody knows them," said one cattleman, shaking his head. "Only a fool would spend his time trying to set 'em down." But John kept looking, and one night he met a cowboy who knew 89 verses to the Old Crimson Trail. That's right, 89. That song is as long as the trail from Texas to Montana. The cowboy declared, uh, but he went on, I'm not going to poke my face up in your blammered old horn and sing. Never mind the horn, at least sing it for me, pleaded John, and while John scribbled the words, the cowboy crooned. Not long after, John met a woman camping under some cottonwoods. She had wandered all over the West, telling fortunes and singing. Like the cowboys, she took one look at his recording machine and waved it away. Finally, she let John write down the lyrics as her voice rang out sweet and clear. John was pleased with what he had found, but he had only a few songs and hardly any recordings. He needed more. Then he heard about an old trail cook in San Antonio who knew a world of cowboy songs. John headed there as soon as he could. John found the cowboy asleep under a mesquite tree. The old cook lifted his hat, opened one eye, and closed it again. Come back tomorrow, he mumbled crossly. He'll never sing for me, thought John, discouraged. Maybe I should just pack up and go home. But the next day, John went back, determined to give it one more try. Suddenly, the old cook cleared his throat and crooned an unforgettable song into the recording horn. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range. By the end of the summer, John had found enough songs for his book, and he'd gathered wonderful recordings too. One night before he went home, John sat with some cowboys around a bright, crackling fire. The men were quiet for a while, rolling the last of their coffee around in the bottom of their mugs. Then, one by one, their voices drifted on the winds. John sang along, his voice strong and happy. At the end, he gave a cowboy yodel, and everybody laughed. As John fell asleep under the starry sky, he smiled to think that someday people, not even born yet, would be able to sing these songs too. John had found his path in the world. John Avery Lomax, song hunter, was on his way. And then it goes on and gives a history of John Lomax, who has collected thousands of American folk songs, which is pretty incredible. That's where Home on the Range came from, was from his research and from recording just cowboys out in Texas and in the West. So let's just finish today singing our cowboy songs for our Frontier Days performance. So we're just going to do the 3 that we played on the ukulele, and then that'll be our class for today. Pretty interesting to know where these songs came from, and when you're learning Wyoming history, that there were people just like John who had gone to universities and then came back and did research in the Wild West, which is pretty interesting. Let's start with Home on the Range, since that was what the book was about. Let me get my ukulele ready and get some help. Okay. Are you ready? Do you remember Home on the Range? Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam and the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. And to think without John Lomax, we would not have Home on the Range today. Let's do Susanna. From Alabama with the banjo on my knee, I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. It rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry. The sun so hot I froze to death, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with the banjo on my knee. I had a dream the other night when everything was still. I thought I saw Susanna coming down the hill. A buckwheat cake was in her mouth, a tear was in her eye. Says, I am coming from the south, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. And we'll finish with Clementine. Clementine. In a canyon, excavating for a mine, dwelt a miner, 49er, and his daughter Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Brought you up then like a fairy, and her shoes were number 9. Herring boxes without topses, sandals were for Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Off she ducklings to the water every morning just at 9. Hit her foot against a splinter, fell into the foaming brine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Ruby lips above the water, blowing bubbles soft and fine. But alas, I was no swimmer, so I lost my Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Excellent. And we'll finish there today. That'll give you some time to give me some feedback on some pop songs that you can do the drumming patterns with, as well as we'll keep working on the Achy Breaky Heart line dance and other line dances like that. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to me on Google Classroom or on Parent Square. I hope you enjoyed our 6th lesson. Have a great rest of your day.